I wonder what they mean when they say a new world, maybe an order? With the 10-year anniversary coming up, I'm hoping to bring as many people to this truth as I possibly can. Most people don't believe anything unless they hear it on the media. So in 2016, I was a big TMZ watcher, I admit it. And of course, this was their story.
Having to go to a local pharmacy a bunch to try to get something, and a bunch of times.
It seems to be the last time that he was seen in public. This was outside of Walgreens.
And we're told he was pacing in the parking lot outside of the Walgreens.
So the media wants us to believe that on April 20th, Prince was seen outside Walgreens pacing back and forth because he needed drugs so bad due to all the pain he was in from his hip surgery. But when you take the time to investigate the investigation with me, you'll find what a crock of this actually is. And if he was in so much pain, where's the cane? How is he pacing back and forth? He wasn't carrying a cane on the CCTV evidence either, just strolling. This guy in the dark clothes behind him, this person that's allegedly Prince, and Dr. Schulenberg moseying in and out of the doctor's office the night before he shows up dead at Paisley Park. You know who we do see a lot of, though, and that's Kirk Johnson. Kirk Johnson, who is seen leaving the doctor's office with a cell phone in his hand, although none of the texts that are provided as part of the investigation are available during the time that he was allegedly at the doctor's office. And regarding medication, the only person you ever see with medication is Kirk himself. This is him coming back from Walgreens with the medicine in his hand because Dr. Schulenberg said that he prescribed clonidine, hydroxine, and Valium. And guess what? The media sells the whole story on the fact that Kirk got Percocet in his name for Prince. But none of those prescriptions were for Percocet. Those medications that were put in Prince R. Nelson's name are clonidine, which you can put a very hyper ADHD child or someone to bed on. It'll knock you right out, clonidine will. And then over here you have the hydroxine. They say they prescribed it for high blood pressure for Prince. But it's also like a mild Ativan. You can be prescribed it to stop itching or various things like that. So he's got clonidine to knock a person out, hydroxine that can also help a person sleep. And guess what? The media doesn't tell you about the diazepam, which is Valium. So there's no way that what you read in the newspapers and here on TMZ is true. Let me guide you there. Guide you to the truth, that is. And that is that Kirk Johnson is one of the people playing Prince, ascertaining the medicine, telling the investigators he knew nothing about it. It's a big, long story, but we got to start somewhere. So let's start with the actual hip surgery cover that the media sells. Any and every news media outlet will tell you that Prince secretly suffered from pain stemming from a hip operation, and that was allegedly done in 2010. Coincidentally, that's the same, well, nothing's coincidental, but that's the same year that I actually experienced my NDE and met him there. I want to expose to you some various ways in which the investigation disproves their own story if you take the time to look. Here, they're researching the storage room on the second floor, and the detective says that he found a confidential agreement signed by Evan Bach, a photographer, and some paperwork from hip surgery Prince received in Texas. Now, I don't know about you, but I never read about Prince being in Texas. Anyway, the other piece of documentation is from Richard Peliquin. They state that he's a former groundskeeper who had knowledge of Prince's surgical history. In 2010, he said that he had his hip replaced at the Mayo Clinic by Dr. Truesdale. So that contradicts the paperwork that was found in Texas. When you research the Moline paperwork provided, it says history reviewed, no pertinent past surgical history. The reason for the contradictions regarding the surgery lies in the fact that I have proven in my other videos that there were multiple people dressing up as Prince in order to pull off the world's biggest cover-up. This is an image I found of Kirk Johnson in, I believe it was 2020, and I thought it was funny because he put himself in the orange suit. Just so you're aware, this whole bin is full of the Prince investigation and research that I printed out and highlighted, wrote down with my own hands. It is organized. I have the Carver County incident reports. I have it all. You can see highlight research. I know what I'm talking about. This whole thing is full of the research. And then we top it off with something a little more eloquent, because this is what I've been doing over 6 years, was turning this. And this is a book that has all of the information broke down and highlighted according to the case numbers and so on. You can see I'm pretty meticulous in my work. All right, so what I'm trying to do is share this information with you, not come here to spout some silly conspiracy theory, which is what some people might write this off as, but you should not, and you will not. I drew this on New Year's Eve, the year of 2016, so the year of the death. I have to admit, a friend came along and shaded it a little bit, which kind of irked me, because then it wasn't all my drawing that irritated me. But the majority of it's mine. I don't draw, but I'm just saying. And this is a drawing of me by that person. I said, all I can think about is Prince stuff. It's all I can think about. And it's like Batman is like part of my brain. And so this is me. And this is my shelf of wisdom and knowledge. And a great deal of it has to do with the Prince investigation. The information that was told to me during my NDE experience goes far beyond what this world knows. And I'm trying to go slow and start with the truth so that you can understand that this isn't just another, rock star death, washed up singer. It's a cover-up, and the ones that we call government and officials, Carver County, all the people that were involved, Kirk Johnson, Judith Hill, Tyka, all the people, they all need to be held accountable for what they're doing. And I intend on exposing what they're doing as slowly and painstakingly as need be, because I'll never stop, and I will show you the proof. And what that will do is it'll bring the truth into the world, thereby making the world a better place, because our world is very dark. It is very what we consider a cult. It's very strange. And in order to tell the truth, I need to be very brave, so that's just what I'm going to do. So let's get back to the multiple identities, because we knew him, born Prince Rogers Nelson, better known as Prince. If you look up the identity for Prince Rogers Nelson, this is what you're going to see. Right from the very beginning, there's a discrepancy, because this is the birth certificate that's in the book and promoted on media, and it says Prince Roger Nelson. Here you can see this is Moline documentation that says they were there for an overdose. The patient was Nelson, Prince, but if you look closely, Prince is spelled Prince. He is said to be 61 years old with a date of birth of 6/7/1954. I can't zoom this in anymore because you wouldn't believe how small it is with the real paperwork, so I have it zoomed in as many times as you can. So this patient was born 1954. It says 6/7/1954, 61 years old. Nelson, Prince is the name. More than that, the patient shows to be 110 pounds. So we all know that with the media promoting, the Prince they're showing couldn't have been any more than 98 pounds or so, 5'2". That was tiny. He's a tiny man. So this patient is 110. I just wanted to point that out. This portion of the Moline hospital paperwork says Prince Nelson. The birth date is 6/7/1959. There aren't that many typos in the world when you're dealing with a superstar. That's just silliness. And when you look further into this patient's history, the Prince Nelson, you look down into the documentation and they're doing all the vitals. They do what's called a grasp threshold. They do it for both a male and a female. Now, that led me to ponder whether this patient, who is not the Prince Rogers Nelson that we all came to know, that made me wonder who this patient really was, because like I said, there was more than Kirk Johnson playing lookalike. Now, with those identity issues, even NBC News reported that the hospital in Moline said it treated no patient by the name of Prince Rogers Nelson, the artist's full name. Another nearby hospital, Trinity Rock, also said it did not take in such a person. So the whole story that we're being fed, from the Moline landing to the death discovery on the morning of the 21st, is the fabrication that I say it is. Evidence shows that Dr. Mancha from a Moline hospital, she wouldn't even call Prince Prince. It says here in orange. It should be noted that Dr. Mancha, during the interview, describes Prince only as the patient. Therefore, any comments about Prince will be described as patient. That's not weird at all. So throughout these last 6 years, I've come to realize when I do these videos, I talk about the key players like people know who they are, like I do, but they don't. So I'm going to make those clarifications, and we're going to start with Kirk Johnson, because he is sold in the media as being Prince's right-hand man. He was the best man at the wedding to Maite, and I got some signatures for comparison for you, but he is the one that the media promotes, went and got Percocet. Remember, that's a big deal. It said that Kirk got Percocet for Prince because Prince didn't want to have it in his name. Now, the media then sells that Prince died from an overdose of Vicodin that was laced with fentanyl. That's not Percocet. And then when you read further into the investigation, it talks about how there was ecstasy and capsules full of other miscellaneous drugs found on Paisley Park. So it's much more than they say, but I'm getting off track. Let me get back to the one they call Kirk Johnson, because I want you to know who these people are and how they got away with what they got away with. I had to just skip over here to my Google Docs. I have him labeled as Old Man Johnson because it's the reason Prince sang "And We Went Riding" down by Old Man Johnson's farm. Here's some things you need to know about Kirk. Kirk Johnson is a pretty small dude. I think he's probably 5'4". Consider these photos from his Instagram for Lifetime Fitness, the gym that he worked for. These women are just a little bit shorter than he is. So again, I think he clocks in at 5'4". This is his daughter, Michaela Johnson, he's just barely taller than her. She tried out for the Timberwolves cheerleading. Michaela, MK. So Kirk is 5'4". That 5'4" is listed as the height of the patient in Moline at 117 pounds. Prince Nelson, birth date 6/7/1959. That's not Prince Rogers Nelson. The whole world knows he was 5'2". More than that, the Moline paperwork shows that the patient had Percocet in their name. Here on 415, this is patient intake paperwork. It says historical medications entered this encounter. That means that the patient came to the hospital with a bottle of Percocet in their name, which was Kirk Johnson, because they allege that they put it in Kirk's name to keep it out of Prince's name. But unless that was really Kirk's medicine, they wouldn't put it on his patient history. He was checked into the hospital as Prince Nelson, or Nelson Prince, one or the other. You read the ambulance paperwork and it says context. Prince Nelson took 3 pills of Percocet and 1 unknown pill. Now what we see here is some discharge paperwork from Moline, and it's talking about how the patient is signing for their rights and responsibilities and advance directives, which usually aren't given unless someone is dying. Anyway, you can see the signature is very similar to Kirk Johnson's signature. This is Kirk Johnson's signature from the marriage certificate of Maite and Prince. So on the discharge paperwork for the hospital, you can see that it matches Kirk's signature. I have a little collection here of various signatures, so I don't just pull this stuff out of thin air. Here's the marriage certificate. That's where I got Kirk's signature for comparison. Little comparison, Prince Rogers Nelson. That's, I think, for the passport. They tell us that this is his signature also, but to me, it looked close to Phaedra's signature, Phaedra Ellis Lampkins. So clearly, Phaedra Ellis Lampkins, this is her tax paperwork when she got to Paisley Park. That's her signature on this part. You see, it says Phaedra Ellis Lampkins, that's her. And then you have allegedly Prince R. Nelson signing away these controversy music copyrights and various things throughout the investigation. So it's not just the lookalikes playing Prince, it's the biggest cover-up you're ever gonna know about. So back to Kirk. Not only did he acquire Percocet from Dr. Schulenberg on April 14th, he called his dentist, Dr. Elizabeth Boo, and got Tylenol 3 with codeine. Now about Kirk and his height and weight. Prince was known to be 5'2", maybe 100 pounds, 105, something like that. We have established that Kirk is 5'4", maybe 110, 112, depending, fluctuating, 117 according to the Moline paperwork. Anyhow, according to the Moline Fire Department, and we have to read this carefully because it's an example of the reason Prince wrote the lyrics talking so fast, even they don't know what they mean. Because here they say that when they arrived at the airport, upon arrival at 1:26, the patient was being carried out of the plane by a male, later believed to be Kirk Johnson. Now, that can read in one of two ways. With the double speak, it makes you stop and wonder, are they saying that Kirk carried this patient out of the plane or that Kirk was the patient carried by another male? They leave it open to interpretation. So when they say the patient was being carried out of the plane by a male and then say later believed to be Kirk Johnson, it's because, in my hypothesis and from my understanding, the patient was Kirk Johnson. For that matter, it could have even been his daughter, Michaela. She looks similar enough. She's athletic. And when you read the investigation, they try to make you believe that Prince was surrounded by 20-somethings, young girls, 20-somethings, and she would fit that stereotype. Yeah, the media, that's right. They want you to believe that Prince's grown-ass 57-year-old self was hanging out with all these young women, while at the same time being given kudos for mentoring all the singers and things that he was praised for constantly during the 40 years. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. Here, TMZ again writes, the absence of a will sent Prince's family members into a tizzy, etc., because getting his signature on anything was virtually impossible because he felt like he'd been screwed over by people in the past. TMZ reported, noting that his closest advisors were beautiful 20-something women, all models with no experience in anything pertaining to financial security. So that's a complete lie as well, because what the young women were assistants playing lookalike as well. It wasn't just Kirk Johnson. It was all these young associates that I'm going to introduce you to. Little file on Natalia Phillips. Super important to know when you read the investigation. It states that after reviewing the phone records from March 22nd to 4/21, over 70% of the calls made to and from Paisley Park were to Natalia Phillips. She is both a singer-songwriter and she's from California. So according to this email that they call Prince's, in Natalia's social media sites, they both make reference to each other. It's interesting to know, too, that Natalia's parents lived in Minnesota during the 80s, and her father, Alan Phillips, was a musician or a music producer. So she had connection. The article states that they made reference to each other. This is when Prince was using like Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that. And it says, come on, take a sip, Natalia Phillips, grenadine, and then it promotes her song. So if Natalia Phillips was playing Prince, too, she was promoting her own music. On her modeling bio, you can see that for film, she was in Prince's 3121 video, featured actor. She was in the music video A Million Days and Prince's 3121, and more than that, she takes credit for print work for Prince and a microphone tour, the one that he did last in 2016. I say he, but remember the paperwork at Moline doing both the male and female grasp threshold? That means the patient was neither male or female. This is print work for Piano and a Microphone tour, and that's Natalia Phillips. I think if you compare their jawline along the side and put on a black afro, you'll see what I mean. Get the picture. Another young lady, assistant to Prince, by the name of Marone Bacure. I believe she was dressing up as Prince as well, and she had a permanent residence at the Chanhassen Suite and Inns. See, the people that I've discovered that are playing Prince, they were like multi-biracial. You can't really tell what race they were, and big brown eyes, lips, etc. It's important to know that she had a full-time room number 127 at the Chanhassen Inn and Suites, because the documentation in the investigation with the USB drive centers on the back of the Country Inn and Suites from the Americana Bank across, which is where her room would be. More than that, the DEA states below me that when they were doing their investigation, they received shipping documents from FedEx Ground in regards to the Country Inn and Suites and related to Paisley Park. They reviewed the documents and looked at these numerous items that were shipped to the hotel. And if you read the investigation further regarding vitamin deliveries, then maybe you could understand Marone Bacure's $6,800 paycheck on April 20th at 8 p.m. Anyway, again, when I met Prince, it was 2010, and he told me about lookalikes for bigger purposes that I'm actually going to get into in this video. I just want to introduce you to the players. So Kirk, Marone, Natalia Phillips, and another girl that we call Julia Ramadan. It's not that hard to put on a wig and sunglasses and lose a bunch of weight and wear some rubber here and there like Jim Carrey in The Mask, and then poof, you got another Prince. Again, TMZ said it. He was around these 20-something models that knew nothing of anything. This is Julia Ramadan, another assistant. You see what I mean? You can't really tell her ethnicity, big eyes, lips. Makeup can do a lot. It's all about makeup and lighting. Trust me, I know. When Julia was playing Prince, her Instagram was full of posts about watching Prince. The no sleep binge continued. She made reference to the green room. She was playing Prince, promoting herself. That's what was going on here. Now, along with saying that Prince hung out with all these 20-something emails, when you read them, you have the JR, Natalia Phillips, Stella Blue, Marone Bacure, and they're talking back and forth with each other. Of course, they black most of that out. But my point is this. The investigation states that the email JR was set up by Julia Ramadan for Prince, right? Because he was so private, he didn't do anything himself. So any email that you see that says JR, it could be Julia Ramadan. It could be Jewel Roberts, the chef's wife, for that matter. But anyway, that's how crazy this is. These emails actually are important because they took place on the 19th. The 19th is a very important date because it's where the lies between all the people become so obvious. You can't deny what I'm saying. And even Kim Pratt, the limo driver, says that's the night Prince passed.